Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar, Asia's fastest growing insurance and risk intermediation center, organized by Labuan IBFC and Brighton. I know some of you are from other parts of the world, so a good morning and good evening to those of you far and wide. I would also like to thank the attendees. Thank you for signing up for this, and we hope in the next 1 hour we would be able to provide you with what is very exciting about Labuan. The last 18 to 20 months has been a very challenging time for every one of us, but Labuan has managed to ride it out, and there were some bumps, but all in all, I would say that Labuan has done very, very well for itself. And one of the things that I would like to make a mention is that I would like to offer huge congratulations to Labuan IBFC and to Farah and her team for winning the top international captive domicile of 2021 at the recent European Captive Review Awards held in Luxembourg. And this is on top of Labuan IBFC winning the Asian equivalent for the last 3 years back to back. So that is quite an amazing feat. Notwithstanding the fact that we have all these challenging times that I've alluded, the regulator, Labuan IBFC and the LIIA are very excited about our future, and we look forward to taking Labuan to new heights. So to kick it off and to give us an overview of what is so special and unique about Labuan, and to tell you how diverse and dynamic we are, I will pass the next session over to Annie Undikai, the CEO of Brighton, who is also the Deputy Chairman of the LIIA. Over to you, Annie.
Thank you, Roy. Okay. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My presentation today is on the different licenses available in Labuan IBFC for insurance industry. Next. Firstly, let us look at how Labuan IBFC insurance industry did in 2020. Labuan remained resilient despite the economic effects from the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. Overall, the Labuan insurance industry demonstrated better business performance with higher profitability in 2020, supported by improved underwriting result driven by lower claim experience. Total premium underwritten recorded a moderate growth, largely driven by captive business, followed by the Labuan reinsurance business. In 2020, total gross premium recorded a marginal growth of 4.5% to $1.6 billion, mainly from reinsurance business. Foreign business from 60.9% or $968.8 million of the underwritten premiums. The industry profitability improved by 87.1% to $364.1 million in 2020 from $194.6 million in 2019. Total insurance asset grew by 9.9% to $5.1 billion, which was mainly attributable to higher investment in fixed deposit and money market. Next. Labuan International and Business Financial Center, or commonly called Labuan IBFC, is a jurisdiction for the formations of insurance and insurance-related companies with mature, pragmatic, and business-friendly regulations. They have advanced legislative structures, broad range of service providers, competitively priced professional services. Labuan IBFC offer a wide range of financial products and services to customers worldwide, including banking and investment banking, insurance, captive, trust business, fund management, investment holding, and company management and Islamic financing. The Labuan Financial Services Security Act 2010 and the Labuan Islamic Financial Services Security Act provides for the establishment of a complete spectrum of insurance activities, and I will be discussing each licenses in detail in these presentations. The insurance and insurance-related companies licensed in Labuan IBFC are regulated and supervised by Labuan FSA. Next. As at 30th September 2020, there are 220 licenses issued by Labuan FSA. Next. The special advantage of Labuan, or what makes Labuan special? The insurance and insurance-related companies in Labuan IBFC is governed by the Labuan Financial Services Security Act and the Labuan Islamic Financial Services Security Act, which was specially drafted in a manner designed to provide a simple and helpful operating environment. Secondly, a Labuan license or insurer or reinsurers can transact general insurance business, a life insurance business, and it may carry on the reinsurance business of domestic Malaysian insurance business, including the reinsurance of domestic insurance business transacted in Ringgit, Malaysia. However, Labuan licenses cannot transact Malaysian domestic business except as reinsurance and Malaysian permitted risk. Number 3, all licenses under the Labuan Financial Services and Security Act, or the conventional insurance, may establish a takaful or Islamic window, and no separate license is required. Conventional licensee can use the existing fund from the non-Sharia compliance business to be channeled as seed capital for the Islamic window for the business commencement of the takaful window or for the payment of underwriting deficit. There's freedoms to follow any recognized accounting standard or standard agreed with Labuan FSA. Next. There's freedom to invest fund in a manner considered appropriate by the management. There is no exchange control restriction in Labuan. The company can choose the principal currency in which they operate and maintain the accounting records. They may also establish a Labuan marketing office or co-located office outside of Labuan, i.e. anywhere in Malaysia. They can be managed by management company licensed in Labuan instead of establishing its own office in Labuan. The tax is at 3% if you comply with economic substance, or 24% of audited profit. An advantage in Labuan is the existence of Labuan manager as service providers to facilitate easy entrance to Labuan. The meeting and board of directors can be held anywhere in and out or out of Labuan. However, a meeting in Labuan may be required by Inland Revenue to comply with economic substance. Next. Effective 1st of January 2019, Labuan companies will be taxed at 3% of audited profit if economic substance is complied, or 24% if not complied. There are two parts in economic substance: full-time employees and operating expenditure in Labuan. The requirement is listed in the slides, as you can see there. I would not mention it again. I mean, as you can see in the slides, what are the requirements for each licensee? Next. As per the Act, all insurance and insurance-related company in Labuan must either establish its own management office in Labuan or appoint a licensed manager. The role of manager is from assisting with license application, record keeping, accounting, regulatory reporting, payroll, internal audit, to list a few, liaising with regulators, liaising with other service providers such as the auditors and trust companies. With the insurance manager handling the back room, the licensees are able to focus more on core strategic activities. Next. This is the licensing processes. Firstly, you need to appoint a service provider, i.e. the manager and the trust company, reserve company name. The insurance manager will submit the license application to Labuan FSA. Within 30 working days from the submission of the application, Labuan FSA will issue an approval in principle. Then the company will be incorporated or registered if it is a branch. Once that is done, bank account will be set up and the company will remit the parent capital as required by Labuan FSA into the bank account. The manager will submit all the documents stated in Labuan FSA letter of approval, and the company is licensed. Next. Labuan insurance business means insurance business which is not domestic business and which is transacted in foreign currency. Notwithstanding that, as I've mentioned earlier, the advantage of Labuan insurance business include reinsurance business of domestic insurance business transacted in Malaysian ringgit and such domestic business that is approved by Bank Negara Malaysia. Insurance or takaful, when I mention insurance, it includes all the Islamic in Labuan, can do both insurance and reinsurance. Reinsurer can only do reinsurance business. In addition, life insurer can sell life policy including investment-linked insurance product in foreign currency to high net worth Malaysian residents. Next. Labuan insurer can establish, is considered tier 2 for reinsurance placement after reinsurer license in by Bank Negara. Premium ceded to Labuan insurer, reinsurer, takaful or takaful is 100% deductible on the Malaysian insurer takaful company. Solvency margin is the higher of the prescribed capital or 20% of last year net premium income for general or 3% of actual reserve for life. Next. Labuan captive insurance business means Labuan insurance business where the insured is a related corporation or associate corporation of the captive. Captive available in Labuan are pure captive, agency captive, association captive, or renter captive, through renter captive, master renter captive, and protected sale. Next. Captive can only underwrite its own group risk, either as direct or reinsurance business, although they cannot do direct Malaysian business unless with approval from Bank Negara. Labuan captive may obtain reinsurance protection from any insurance company, irrespective of whether it is a Labuan licensee. Captive may do limited third-party business subject to Labuan FSA agreement. A renter captive acts similar to captive where it can only underwrite its own risk or a limited third-party risk with Labuan FSA agreement. Next. Captive solvency margin is the higher of its prescribed capital or 10% of the net premium income of last year, or 10% of the provision for outstanding claim of last year for general. For life, the higher of prescribed capital or 2.5% of the actual valuation of the liabilities. So you can see here, captive has a lower solvency margin requirement. Next. Labuan insurance related companies are actually insurance service providers. Brokers can arrange general insurance business and reinsurance business, but can only do reinsurance business for Malaysian risks, and MAT business, but subject to Bank Negara approval. For the managed underwriting manager, there are three types of managed underwriting manager. Lloyd's. Firstly is Lloyd's, who is a cover holder, who actually act the same as the insurer, reinsurer, except the security is the Lloyd's syndicates. Secondly is the underwriting agent. But an underwriting agent, they are all licensed under as underwriting manager here. But this underwriting agent can only underwrite on behalf of a Labuan insurer or reinsurers. Captive manager, they are basically, they can only manage captive. Managed underwriting manager here is basically an licensed underwriting manager, but do not have a management office in Labuan. Next. Regulatory capital and license fee is as per the slides. As can be seen, Labuan capital requirement is very competitive as compared to other domiciles. And the license fee is also very, very competitive. Next. Most licensee can opt to establish either marketing office or co-located office outside of Labuan. Insurer, reinsurer can only establish co-located office outside Labuan, but cannot establish marketing office. Insurance and underwriting manager cannot establish co-located office outside Labuan. All the managed underwriting manager, except Lloyd's, cannot have either marketing office or co-located office outside of Labuan. Next. All companies licensed under Labuan FSA and under Labuan Financial Services Security Act and the Labuan Islamic Financial Services Security Act must be a member of the Labuan International Insurance Association. The annual membership fee is 2,500. LIIA usually have their council members and they have meetings with Labuan FSA about 3 times a year. Next. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Brighton Management Limited. We were established in 2005 and we provide insurance management services to all insurance and insurance-related entities licensed in Labuan. Brighton has also established its own PCC. So if you are thinking of establishing an insurance operation, including renting a captive, come to talk to us. My detail is for the next slides. Next. Thank you everyone for listening, and over to you, Farah, I think.
Yes, thank you, Annie. We're just waiting for the slides to come on, and there we are. Thank you, Annie, for that presentation. A very quick overview as to the reinsurance landscape, and thank you, Nick, for joining us. So everyone's met Roy. He very kindly introduced the session. Annie did the presentation. So what you have here is actually a subset of the council members of the Labuan International Insurance Association. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very exciting. So actually the Labuan International Insurance Association, I mean, just as a backgrounder, is probably, well, no, actually is the largest insurance, the largest association within Labuan with more than 220 license holders. And it's extremely institutional, it's extremely global. And really, it is a representation of the depth and the breadth of the reinsurance industry in Labuan. And I'd like to just start generically. Oh, by the way, please do ask us any questions that you might have. I think there's a chat box available for you to send across the questions that will be fed into me. So I just wanted to ask a generic starter question to everyone, really. Obviously, the pandemic's hit us hard. Hopefully, we're coming to the tail end of it, but we shall see. I'm not counting my chickens, basically. Do you think the pandemic has shrunk the reinsurance market globally and in Asia? Any one of you would like to take that first, please?
Nick.
I'm happy to take that, Farah. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning to some of you. So I think overall, I think we can broadly say that at the macro level, reinsurance premiums track to GDP, and of course, GDP. There has been GDP impact across most of the economies in the region and internationally. So I think at the very top level, we'll have seen we might see an impact in top line reinsurance premiums, but in the lines of business that I operate in, which is primarily in the facultative side rather than treaty, we've continued to see a much more resilient market for the types of products that we and many of our competitors are involved in, and have not been so badly impacted in the large and complex risk space.
So yes, but no.
Yes, but no.
I think treaty probably overall will have seen an impact, particularly those reinsurers dealing with SME personal lines business. I think that will be an impact. For large and complex, that sector of the market, I think, has been more resilient.
Roy, Annie, your thoughts on this?
I would concur with Nick. Obviously, the capacity and the ability of the reinsurance market to offer capacity is always there, but underwriters, from my experience, have become a little bit more particular about the underwriting information, the underwriting assessment of the risk, and underwriters are demanding more from cedents and insureds, and underwriting is getting tighter in this current market, and that is quite natural in a hard market. So it's very much favoring underwriters at the moment. As a broker, I obviously am pro-client base at this moment, and my job is basically largely to challenge underwriters to be a lot more flexible. But it's easily said than done of late. But nothing lasts forever.
So I guess the brokers are feeling the squeeze.
Yes.
And any business must be good, no? Because the number of licenses coming into Labuan. So as an insurance manager, obviously the number of licenses coming into Labuan will be business coming in for you.
Yes. Yeah, we've seen quite a number of new licenses, but mainly from the captive.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So I've not seen any new reinsurers coming in. So the only new business that I've seen in 2020 and 2021 is captive.
Well, yeah, I mean, any insurer or reinsurer probably will think twice about expanding their reach.
Yes, especially last year.
I mean, it would be a natural deduction. I think that is probably something that all jurisdictions globally would be challenged with, and at least you have the captives to look at. But you do realize that when we do talk to potential captive users and things like that, we always say that it takes a village to raise a captive, and it is actually the entire ecosystem that people enjoy being part of, and that's why they do come to Labuan, because it's a huge ecosystem, because of the variance of licenses and the depth of the market, really. So I wanted to go into more specific Labuan questions, not so much generic. So it's quite interesting to note that, you know, when the pandemic started, everybody thought that that would be the end of the insurance market because there'll be claims coming from all over. But actually the insurance market, like everything else, including us, we've been quite resilient, you know, and it says a lot about the human spirit, I guess. In your specific subsector, so Nick, Roy and Annie, you actually represent different subsectors of Labuan. In your subsectors, how have you seen the Labuan insurance industry grow?
Well, if I could start with the broking community, it has grown. The number of new brokers that have signed on into Labuan in the last 2 years has increased a little bit more. And that surprised me, to be honest, in light of the last 20 odd months. And that's an encouraging point as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, I would prefer less brokers in Labuan for very selfish reasons. But if one were to be to look at it from a business point of view, it would suggest that intermediaries see a huge opportunity to do business in a Labuan platform, and that's nothing but good news for everybody concerned.
Yeah. So even though, so you're being squeezed by the clients and by competition.
But that is life.
Oh, that is life. And Annie, what about you? How have you seen it grow? Because actually, of all of us here on the panel, you're probably the ones that you're probably, you know, you and your colleagues who are insurance managers who basically act as, you know, fundamentally the conduit to Labuan. You are able to see a broader scope of interest in the jurisdiction.
Yes. I mean, we have seen other type, even though, as I mentioned last year, the past 20 months, the only licensee that I can see coming in, licenses that is being applied for is captive. But there are inquiries on brokers, there are inquiries on insurance and reinsurance as well. So yeah, I'm surprised actually. I thought nothing of the, I thought it was only captive, but actually there are new interests. I guess Labuan is now in the map. So people know where Labuan is. I mean, okay, maybe they don't know where Labuan is, but they have heard of Labuan.
Of course they do.
So, but they've heard of Labuan. And with the service providers that we have in Labuan, for example, the trust company who are marketing, the managers who are going out there and marketing Labuan. So there are more and more people know about Labuan, more and more people, and not forgetting Labuan IBFC, who has been actively marketing Labuan through even these past 20 months through webinars. More and more people are coming in, inquiring about Labuan.
That's good to know. So Nick, fundamental question, why did IGI choose Labuan? I mean, you know, proof is in the pudding, as it were. Roy can speak and Annie can say something, and it's my job apparently to say Labuan's the best thing since sliced bread. But you actually chose Labuan. IGI chose Labuan as its regional home. Walk us through that. Why?
Yeah.
How?
So Farah, it started with, we set up a license originally, a branch here in 2007, just to serve the Malaysian market and primarily the petrochemical sector here in Malaysia. Yep. We did move into other classes of business, particularly financial lines, professional indemnity, D&O, etc. But we continued to serve the rest of the Asia Pacific reinsurance market from mainly our London office. And when the major growth was occurring in Singapore, experienced, and as you will know well, significant growth in the number of licensed entities between 2008 to perhaps 2015, and we as a company observed that and took a more cautious approach. But over time, we realized that we were going to be constrained in our growth if we were only going to continue to serve the region remotely from London and from Dubai. So we had a choice. It was really, do we build on our existing entity here in Malaysia, or do we set up in one of the other main jurisdictions in the region? There's two obvious ones, and I've mentioned one of them already. And for us, what it came down to was what we I guess we really like about the way that Labone is regulated is the regulator understands how company branches operate, and that allows us to build our business in a scalable way that allows us to build our resources here in Malaysia over time. You know, primarily underwriting, but also over time that will be administration and claims, etc. But we can do that when the business case justifies it, and we can continue to bring to bear all the resources in the rest of the group. Obviously, we have to make sure that our regulator understands how that works and that everything is being properly managed. But so we very much like that. But of course, having a regional presence is about being closer to your customers, having, demonstrating to them that you're focused on their needs, you understand them, and you have people with specific knowledge that can respond to those people. So here in Malaysia, geographically, we can serve the whole region, including down into Australia and New Zealand, as well as we could anywhere else. But obviously, it's particularly good for Southeast Asia. And in terms of recruitment of people, we are able to recruit, excellent local and international talent to come and work in our business here. So we didn't see there to be too many downsides for us. And of course, you have a lower operating cost base here in Malaysia compared to Singapore and Hong Kong, which certainly helps. But it was more about the fundamentals, and the fundamentals were right for us. And we didn't need to incur the additional cost of setting up a new license elsewhere, because our Labuan license, our Malaysia base, allows us to build an excellent general reinsurance business for the region.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you say, and in the sense that I like to pick on two key things here. The first is actually the Labuan risk management reinsurance business has been organically grown, or has organically grown from the first right of refusal for Malaysian business. And I think when something is grown organically, it's stronger, it's more attractive. And I think that's how it first had its legs. Now, as you know, almost 70% of all premiums going through Labuan is foreign, which means that we've really morphed from being the first right of refusal. So you can't quite sit in Malaysia. So let's sit on Labuan and then do Malaysian business. So that's moved from, yeah, we'd like to do some Malaysian business, that's great, but we can actually use Labuan as a solid base for the region. And that is evidenced via the kind of premiums and the source of premiums, right? So 70% now is foreign. The other thing that you mentioned, which is quite interesting, is, is Singapore. Let's just say Singapore, okay? Because Hong Kong is a great financial center. We have a lot of respect for both Singapore and Hong Kong, but as far as reinsurance risk is concerned, it is Singapore that is probably the closest to Labuan, and it is a leading reinsurance center. We are members of the Singapore Reinsurance Association. We've got great friends there. There is a lot to be said in how Singapore has grown and how that has fed into Labuan. Do you or do you not agree? Any of you?
Sorry, shall I take that one?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree, and I think they're highly complementary jurisdictions. I mean, the nature of Singapore as a commercial, maritime, finance and insurance hub means it accumulates a lot of advantages, and we as you've already indicated, you are with the membership of the SRA, we are all very much part. Those of us that are not doing just Malaysian business are very much part of that wider ecosystem, and probably half of the business that we write is in some way connected with the Singapore market, be it intermediated through there or having a lead insurer or co-insurers there. So it's very important to us, and we have very valuable clients there. We also do a lot of business direct from other markets in the region. So Singapore perhaps isn't as important as people might think at a distance, but it is very important. It has a great concentration of reinsurance capital, intermediaries, and clients as well, who are important to Labuan brokers and reinsurers. So yes, Singapore's important, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to going to see our friends, colleagues, and customers there now that looks like the border's reopening. So I'd see us as contributing to and complementing the Singapore reinsurance market.
Absolutely. Roy, any thoughts on that?
I would agree with Nick. Our relationship with Singapore is symbiotic, it's we don't really compete with each other in many ways. We don't. It's strange, but it's true. And I think complementary is the correct description of our relationship that we have. And as a broker, I deal with Labuan reinsurers, my Labuan market, but I also deal with their colleagues in Singapore when it gets, when we required further understanding of a complex risk, and it involves underwriters based in Malaysia who are Labuan based together with their colleagues in Singapore, and it complements. And we will always strive to compete with Singapore in other areas, but as a business, Malaysia and Singapore has always worked together. And that is no different from Labuan and from Singapore as far as the reinsurance community is concerned. There is a great working relationship there.
Yeah, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there's many licensed insurer and reinsurer who are actually from Singapore in Labuan. Okay, initially what they did was to come in to access the Malaysian market. Then with our Islamic window, the Takaful window, they set up in Labuan, they have a Takaful, and now they can underwrite Takaful business from all over the world. So through Labuan. So in a sense, the underwriters may be sitting in Singapore to do this, but they have an opportunity here to underwrite outside of Malaysian business. Okay, the initial one is to access Malaysian market, but slowly moving towards other regional business that they put through Labuan. So yeah, and especially the value proposition is the Islamic window as well, actually.
Correct, but I don't know if I agree with your term slowly. When I first started working for Labuan IBFC in 2008, like 60% of all the premiums were domestic premiums, and now 70% are foreign. So actually in the last 12 years, it's grown so significantly. And I think that's got a lot to do with the growth in Singapore. I think that's got a lot to do with the regulators as well. Our regulators are extremely clued on and facilitative. I mean, the idea, my job and developing the market for Labuan would be impossible if we did not have facilitative regulators. And yes, of course, like all other centers, players will always have a bone to pick with the regulator. And that continues also in Labuan for sure, but by and large, they are extremely facilitative and open. And I think that's a huge plus point. The proportionality of regulations within Labuan is another thing. And really, when I first went to the Singapore Reinsurance Congress, that was interesting because the number of Labuan players just showed me, because I'm not an insurance professional, obviously, really showed me that close working relationship between Singapore and Labuan. Now, yeah, what I wanted to ask now is, okay, so we've seen it obviously. So, you know, this conversation seems a bit random, but actually it's not, I promise you. So we started with something global, and then we moved to the current scene, as it were, in Labuan. And then we talked about how we've seen it grow. How do you want to see it grow moving forward? How do you think it can grow even further? What would you like to see, any one of you? Maybe we start with the chairman of the association, because I guess he might have some devious plans about how we can be the biggest reinsurance center in Asia.
I wish I had devious plans, Farah, but it is not my purview to develop that. But I am very enthusiastic about Labuan's future, notwithstanding the real challenges that we have been facing in the last 20 months or so. I think Labuan is in a special place to create a very unique ecosystem. I think you've used that word, Farah, ecosystem, many times.
Yeah.
And it really is an ecosystem. Labuan is a homogeneous kind of place as far as the insurance market is concerned, where you have insurers, reinsurers, insurance managers, captives, and the like. And it's going to evolve in that way. So what I would like Labuan is to be a reflection of the world, but in a smaller way, where Labuan becomes a market. Labuan will reflect various facets of the insurance world out there, from insurance, reinsurance, broking, captives, and to the like of managing general agents like MGAs, and digitalization, fintech, and the whole works. We have the basis and the platform to be unique and to fit a particular niche. So there is great opportunity, and I like to see Labuan exploit all that fully.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about digitalization. There's a lot to be said because obviously Labuan is a huge digital center. We've got 80 odd digital licenses, and a lot of people don't realize that the first digital license we issued was to an insurtech. Having said that, there hasn't been enough movement in the insurtech space for a lot of different reasons, right? Because insurance in itself, generally, insurance generally is slower than banking anyway to adopt digitalization, based on my personal experience anyway. So yes, there's an opportunity. There are a lot of opportunities there with leveraging of other possibilities within the other verticals in Labuan. And digitalization is one thing. I think Annie mentioned Islamic finance. Takaful. My personal pipe dream for 2022 is to have a full-fledged Islamic captive. And if it's on a digital platform on DLT, that would be even better. And if it suits, and if it caters to the less fortunate, and there's an inclusive element, a financial inclusive element. Annie, let's go out and try and get that, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, well, one is on the pipeline on Islamic captive, Takaful captive.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We have actually a question from Bernard, and I think he's our friend from EY. What new pioneer initiatives does Labuan need to do in order to continue to be the preferred destination in the future? In a way, we've kind of discussed it already, but these are all the new elements that we're trying to incorporate. But maybe let's talk a little bit about how active the LIIA is becoming in developing policy and procedures and thinking around the insurance, reinsurance industry in Labuan. Annie or Roy or Nick even?
Roy? Chairman.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that my colleagues on the council, Annie and Nick here, and the rest of them, we are dealing with so many issues. Now, let me talk about two little pet projects that are ongoing now. One is pertaining to captives, where we have created an international-based subcommittee for captives, which brings together people who are in the business of captives, but at various different levels of that sector. So it's a very all-rounded team. And we have brought these minds together in order to find how Labuan can continuously remain ahead of the curve as a captive market, and how can we be what we call in step with what's happening globally as far as captives are concerned. It's very easy to be lost in a crowd, but if we can punch above our weight, and that's what Labuan has been doing all this while, we've been punching above our weight, and we will keep on doing that. So that's one little project that's ongoing and developing, and we hope that that subcommittee for captives will take us to a new level. And
I'm sorry, this is just so rude of me, but I just wanted to say that what I found very interesting with the captive subcommittee is that actually half maybe of that subcommittee is not even in Labuan, right? So
yes,
they're global players that are feeding into the Labuan pipeline and have interest in Labuan. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. And that's the whole intent of getting that subcommittee. Labuan is not insular. Labuan is about looking out there, and we are not afraid to talk to people elsewhere in different jurisdictions. We are not an enemy to anybody. We want to make friends. We are in a global village after all. Another project that we are working on, and there's a little box that we need to tick is managing general agents, or MGAs, where we allow highly talented individuals who are underwriters and business developers to work together with insurance players around the world, and to bring that kind of expertise and capacity within Labuan and make that available to the region. Now, that is still work in progress. We have created a subcommittee where we have players who are involved in MGAs themselves. And again, it has a tinge, it's a smaller community, smaller committee, so to speak, but we have engaged lawyers and so forth to sit in that. So that's a project that we hope that would materialize in 2022, and watch that space. And lastly, I think another thing that we are very concerned in the LIIA is that raising standards, maintaining international standards, increasing knowledge, and being ahead of the curve again, that trying to show the world that Labuan is a place where we encourage talent, we bring talent, we nurture talent, and we want to be a place where there is a level of expertise that can compete with other jurisdictions. So I think that is the broad picture of where the LIIA is trying to push the envelope a little bit more.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, the chairman said it all.
Yeah, and I would just add something that we're going to discuss at our next council meeting, Roy, which is, and again, it's about sharing best practice. One of the things that the Singapore reinsurance market has done very well is implement and manage its own industry-led reinsurance contract certainty protocols. And I was lucky enough to be part of that initiative in Singapore, and I still sit on that committee. And anybody that is trading with the Singapore reinsurance market will be working in, will be impacted by that in a positive way. But one of the things that we can do, and we will do with our members, is to make that more explicit, and give our members access to that knowledge and capability, which is free to use, and it will benefit our community. And also, again, in that symbiotic relationship, will add to the operational risk management improvements of contracts formed around the Singapore reinsurance market. So that's something that we'll be able to do for our members as well.
Well said.
Yes.
That kind of just reinforces our earlier discussion about how closely related we are to the Singapore reinsurance market, isn't it? And, you know, under normal circumstances, we'll all be down in Singapore next week for the SIRC and not virtually. So yeah, so that's the other thing. I wanted to ask Annie actually specifically, obviously as the conduit to the market, you get a lot of feedback about how the jurisdiction can become better. I mean, in your mind, right? To me anyway, it looks, I mean, of course, there's obviously a lot of operational issues, right? So we've had challenges in tax. We will continue to have challenges in tax, right? So the last challenge in tax was vis-a-vis substance. And, you know, LAVON was very well placed to really conquer that challenge because of our low cost and the clear Gazette order that came out, especially for the reinsurance industry. You know, to make it very clear, unlike certain other verticals, actually, if I'm honest. So, you know, it was very well managed, I should say. Next is going to be BEPS 2.0, Pillar 1, Pillar 2, minimum corporate tax rate, and all the rest of it. So, you know, there will always be operational challenges. But if you were to kind of look at it, Annie, and say, if there's one thing you'd like to change to make LAVON better as an insurance manager for all your clients, what would it be, by the way?
Easy access to Labuan. Okay, I mean, what I meant is, you know, traveling to Labuan. But anyway, basically, what would I want? Actually, nothing much. All the infrastructure is there. The regulator is very, very flexible. Not flexible, I mean, regulation is there, but they are accessible.
Accessible,
yeah.
accessible enough.
Yeah.
Not
accessible enough, not too much. So yeah, but I don't think there is what I want to see. More products maybe. More products that
we're going to have an MGA well, we already have a handful of MGAs in Labuan, right? I was on a call with Nexus this morning actually, talking about how they're going to open up 2 shop lots and all the rest of it, how much they're investing into hiring people and, you know, getting all that done, and how a lot of some other outside work outside Labuan is also being done by that MGA there. So we do have,
but you must remember, currently the managed underwriting manager, which is the underwriting agent, the MGA equivalent, can only underwrite on behalf of a licensed Labuan insurer. So they're very limited in that sense. So
I'm sure Roy is looking at addressing.
Yes.
You know, our good friend Farah just asked us a very difficult question, and it would be amiss to have a discussion around Labuan reinsurance without talking about BESRI. And the situation, I guess, the situation we had with BESRI, I guess, as a jurisdiction, the reputational issue that we at Labuan IBFC Incorporated still continue to try and manage with regards to BESRI. But I think Farah is asking a very valid question, actually. Although he says it's a difficult question, I think it's very valid. We should do a lot more to avoid problems in the future like BESRI. And I think a lot of it's got to do with communication. And maybe, I don't know, Roy, what are your thoughts about the role of LIIA vis-a-vis Labuan FSA, like, you know, in collaboration with Labuan FSA, in order to ensure that the situation with BESRI, you can't say that a situation like BESRI will never ever happen again, obviously, right?
No, yeah.
There are ways and means of managing it. You know, what are your thoughts about the role maybe of LIIA in trying to temper the potential fallout that we've had, or potential fallout we've had if we had another situation like that?
That's I welcome the question. But unfortunately, the LIIA does not have, as a body, powers of enforcement, regulatory, and the like. So, you know, our ability to manage our members is limited to some extent. well, limited to a large extent.
Yeah.
And it's defined in our constitution. What we have done in recent times is created an internal check and balance system where we have what we call a situation where somebody is upset with a particular member of ours, which Besri was, and they want to have an internal complaint or an internal investigation and so forth. So we have created some kind of internal controls of sorts. But ultimately, Farah, it is really the duty of the regulator to ensure that members are towing the line and are meeting minimum standards. And it's really the purview of the regulator, I think. There is only so much that the LIIA can do, and if we do anything, it wouldn't be very effective. We can remind our members, we can educate our members, we can talk to our members, we can facilitate all those gentle words, which is very soft in nature. But at the end of the day, it's down to the regulator to enforce, and of course to be transparent and keep the community updated as to what is going on. So I recognize there are also confidential issues that the regulator deals with. So they are also hindered by what they can say publicly and even privately as well. So I understand all that. So, but the thing is, the LIIA and the LFSA talk regularly, and we meet each other regularly. So I'm not sure whether that's good enough, but we're not always in the dark.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when we did have this issue, there was a very different relationship with the regulator.
Yes.
There was a very, very different relationship with the regulator, and now we have a very different relationship with the regulator. And I'm a huge communications advocate. So I think a lot of it's got to do with clear communication and making sure that whatever action is not only taken, is seen as being taken. You know, it has to be communicated that it's taken. There's no point doing something without people knowing that you're doing it. So I think there's a lot of learning from Besri. I think hopefully the next time something like this does happen, hopefully not so soon.
Hopefully never.
Never.
Especially never.
Never.
Yeah.
I was told recently by a good friend of mine, Datin Maslan, she said, never say never, Farah. So I will never say never, but hopefully not so very soon. Hopefully because the maturity, and that's the point that I wanted to make actually, the maturity of the industry has increased leaps and bounds since this incident. And I think you will find that if this ever happened again, it would be quite different.
Yes.
I think we cannot underestimate that advantage the maturity brings, you know. We are actually out of time.
Oh.
Yeah, we are actually out of time, and I actually have one question that's completely unscripted, because I need to keep everyone on the ball, right? Which is, if you had one wish, so actually it's 2 bits, right? If you had one wish, so we're going into, I don't know how everyone else feels, but we're going to the middle of November, everyone's winding down a little bit, looking, I mean, internally, me and the team, we're looking at 2022, what we're going to do, where we're going to go, since travel is now allowed and all the rest of it. What would be your wish for Labuan IBFC's risk management reinsurance market in 2022? Just one wish. All of you, please.
Easier access to employment passes.
Good one, yes.
You know, we want to build our businesses here. We will, and sometimes we need international talent who have with particular expertise, and their employment will drive growth that will mean that we can employ Malaysians as well. I think we really need support on that.
But it is allowed. I mean, obviously, I just want to be clear here, because we don't know who's going to be watching this, right? Yeah. I don't want to leave them with the impression that, you know, foreigners are not allowed to be employed in Labuan. I mean, in which case, then you won't be that in that little box there.
Yeah. So let me clarify. There has been some inflexibility around the application of rules that make sense when you're not in a pandemic, but are very difficult to adhere to in a pandemic situation where we just need some more flexibility. Okay. I mean, maybe that won't be necessary, but a bit as we come out of the pandemic. But that's what we need to help grow our businesses. Is access to the widest possible talent pool that we can get.
So the pandemic caveat changed everything. Yeah. Just to be clear, okay, the pandemic caveat changed everything. And yes, I mean, I think one of the things in the last 20 months, the regulator has allowed officially for eKYC. We've been led to believe that we are moving towards a more digital element of the regulator and what the regulator accepts. For example, maybe eventually digital signatures, official, proper submissions, and all the rest of it, because we are a digital embracing jurisdiction. That's for sure. But please also understand, right? Just the way that Labuan FSA manages everything to do in Labuan IBFC, bar the income tax regime, immigration is also not part of Labuan FSA.
Sure, and I get that.
Yeah,
and I guess that's always the challenge in any jurisdiction is the more joined up
correct
government there is, the easier it is for everybody, because we exist within a wider government infrastructure.
Correct. And I do know for a fact that the regulator and insurance managers like Annie do a lot towards facilitating the different authorities, as it were, in order to get it done. Annie, your one wish list, your one thing.
Every competent authorities in Labuan, be it Labuan FSA, immigration, income tax, custom, accept digitalize, everybody is doing, like, it's so much easier. No need to have hard copy. I mean, especially during moving forward. COVID time, yes, but moving forward, I mean, there's a lot of exemption was given during the COVID time, but I hope moving forward in 2022, hopefully we are out of this COVID thing, we can move around far easier, but they continue to do the same thing as what was allowed during COVID. So some relaxation on employment pass, some relaxation on submission of documents and things like that, and the banks as well. The banks is requiring a lot of things that is hard copy, which is, I don't understand why. So digitalize everything.
We'll get there. So in a lot of ways, right? I mean, if you look at it, and it's always the case in life, with everything that horrible that happens, there's always the silver lining. Yes. And if this silver lining is that we are getting more digitalized, things are getting done online more, and it's great, no? It's great. Yeah, it's a good wish. It's a good wish. Yeah. Roy. Yes. Last but not least, your single one wish.
I would like Labuan to be a market. A real market, a real reinsurance market. And in order to achieve that, we need more reinsurance players in Labuan. And also to pick up the point that Nick says, that it's a market that allows talent to easily come to Labuan and be permitted to do business in Labuan. So when you have a variety of talent from all around the world congregating in Labuan, and you are now creating a diverse, multicultural, multinational market. It's truly an international market that can really meet the needs of this region. That is what I would like us to achieve. In 2022 might be a hard ask, but I think that it might be, if we can move into that direction and start building the blocks, that Labuan can become a multinational, multicultural, multi-talented market that will assist in the region and assist cedants and insureds and captives and complement our other jurisdictions as well, it'll be nice.
Well, do you know, to a certain extent, it's already happening. 70% of all the premiums, and I keep saying this, is foreign, number one. Every time anybody goes into Labone for that week where you guys are down, where all the license holders are down, it is the United Nations of Labuan.
Correct.
You've got people coming from all over, really. You know, the hotels are all booked up. It's fantastic. It's the United Nations of Labuan. You know, so in a way, it's already happening. I think maybe personally, what's needed is more collaboration within the industry and within inter-industry, i.e. Within the reinsurance market, the risk management insurance market, and intra-industry. So within all the other pillars in Labuan, right? So the banking and stuff like that. I think that,
and we are doing that already.
And we are trying to do that already, and we are doing that already. So there's a lot of potential for depth, which is what I think you're after. So yeah. Okay, so I think we've had a great conversation. If anyone would like any further information, obviously reach out to Annie or myself, Roy or Nick. All that's left for me to do is to thank everyone here. Thank Brighton for this partnership. Thank Roy for being here. Thank Nick for being here. And I'd like to see you at the next one. So in the meantime, stay safe, everyone, and thank you for being with us. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.